So here's the breakdown of an average summer day growing up with my best friend in my hometown of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Wake up, eat some sugary breakfast cereal, ride my bike over to Mark's, start watching some Price is Right. After Price is Right, we make some bagel bites and then go out in the front yard and play wiffle ball until we get cramps from the bagel bites. Then go down in his basement and play Nintendo 64 until I have to go home for dinner. Awesome. Every time. But Mark and I went to different middle schools, and then we ended up going to different high schools. And to make it worse, we ended up going to different states for college. So Mark and I didn't get to see each other very much. And the summer of my sophomore year of college, I was at home, and I get a phone call. Now, the thing was, I was working as a camp counselor, and the best part of being a camp counselor was whenever it rained, I got the day off with pay. And that summer, it rained a lot. So much so that there was like a torrential downpour for 3 days. And Mark calls me on the third day on this Tuesday, and I pick up the phone, I'm like, hey, what's up? And Mark's like, hey man, nothing, what are you doing? I'm like, watching Price is Right. He's like, hell yeah. And he's like, you seen the Conestoga River lately? I'm like, oh yeah. See, my mom lived on a golf course, and there was this old Conestoga River that ran all the way through it. And I'm like, yeah dude, it's totally flooded. Like it's covering most of the 12th hole. And he's like, yeah, you want to go tubing? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So Mark's like, oh, I'm coming over, but they're playing Mountain Climber right now, so I'm going to be a little while. I'm like, oh, yeah, totally, I understand. So Mark gets over around, like, the showcase, and he doesn't have, like, a thick, good, like, rubber tube that you would actually see in a tire. No, Mark has one of those plastic tubes like that they paint on that you would get like a pool supply store, and he's only got one. And I'm like, Mark, there's only one. He's like, yeah, we'll share. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, yeah. So Mark and I are sitting on my couch, and he starts to inflate this piece of crap plastic, and the local news comes on, and they're like, flooding continues around the Susquehanna Valley today. Please do not get in the water. There is a strong and dangerous undercurrent. And Mark, between breaths, is like, hey, Mike. I'm like, yeah, what's up? This is a terrible idea. I'm like, yeah, this sounds pretty bad. He's like, but we were getting in the water anyway. And I'm like, yeah, we're getting in the water. So Mark and I throw on swimsuits, and we run barefoot down to the 12th hole, ready for like a day full of adventure and rapids and fun. And so Mark puts the tube in this dirty brown water, and we sort of like each take one leg and like slide it through the middle hole, and we're like hip to hip and just sitting there like, all right, and I push us off from the middle of the fairway, and we're like paddling, going like, we're gonna get in the middle of the river, it's gonna start rushing us around, and we get out into like the center of the stream, and we're just sort of sitting there, and nothing's really happening. There's not a lot of adventure going on at the moment, and there's a strange smell. And I look at Mark, and Mark's like, hey Mark, isn't the 6th hole upstream from here? Now, that doesn't mean anything to you guys, but for Mark and I, before we tee up on the 6th hole every time, we look off from the tee box at the sewage treatment plant next door. There's an amazing, special kind of silence when two people realize they're floating in a river of poo. And as Mark and I sort of sit and absorb what is now happening to us, literally and figuratively, I look forward and I see, there's sort of like an overpass and then the river bend, and then I turn, I'm like, hey Mark, how are we getting home? And Mark's like, I don't know, we just got in the water. I'm like, yeah, we just got in the water, how are we getting home? He's like, I don't know, dude. So we're starting to pick up some speed now, and I'm getting a little scared. And I'm like, we need to get out of the water. And he's like, yeah, we should probably get out of the water. And I look up, and on the freeway overpass, there are some volunteer firefighters, and they have a big truck and a winch, because they're waiting for idiots like us to come by to fish us out of the water. And they see us coming down with some speed, and they're like, hey, you boys need some help? Because I'm from the Alabama part of Pennsylvania. But Mark and I, we're like on an adventure with buddies. We can get through this together. So we're like, no! And we pull off an awesome maneuver so Mark drifts over and he grabs onto this big pile of debris and he holds on, and I like slide out kind of awkwardly from the big tube, and I start swimming because I was in the swim team, but I don't want to like put my face in the water so much. So I can do butterfly, but right now I'm just kind of like doggy paddling my way through. And I get to the side of the bank of the river, and I reach out and I grab for a branch, and I get a fistful of thorns and my own blood. And I'm like, oh, damn it! But I got no other option, so I hold out my arm. I'm like, come on, buddy, Mark, I got you! And so Mark pushes off the debris, and he sort of like looks like a kid in swim practice when he's like 4 with the rubber thingies on, because he's got the tube around him, so he's just kind of like flopping through the water. And I reach out and I grab his arm and I swing around to the bank, and he grabs onto the branch and gets a fistful of thorns in his own blood. And he's like, damn it, Baireuther, what was that? I'm like, I had no other options. We gotta move though. So Mark and I start pushing towards, like, through this just pile of thorns, and we're getting cut up really good, and we are waist deep in crap water. Have you ever heard of a plant called burn hazel? It's like poison ivy, except that instead of when it touches your skin, it makes you itch. It makes it feel like it's on fire, and that's when you're not cut up and covered in shit water. Mark and I realize we are in this when everything below our waist feels like it's in lava, pretty much. And it's burning as we take every step through thorns and trash and just burning sensation. I'm yelling, I'm like, oh my God, it hurts so bad. And Mark's like, Mark, this is a terrible idea. And I'm like, Mark, I know you said to get in the water anyway. And hearing our shrill cries from above, the volunteer firefighters look down like, you boys sure you don't need some help? But Mark and I are together, and we're going to do this. So in harmony, we reply, no! At that exact moment, wasps. And not like they're pissed. They're pissed for wasp standards. They've just been through the wasp equivalent of Hurricane Katrina, thanks to all the flooding, and they're looking for somebody to fuck up, and it is me and Mark. As Mark gets stung for the first time, I hear him scream, holy shit, Mike, run! So we burst out of this water like salmon swimming upstream, just like these white flashes of suburban mail, like, oh my God! Barefoot, we are running down the golf course, just sprinting for our lives, at which point we hit the unfinished, under construction roads that lead to my mom's house, and we just are running over gravel, screaming all the way back to my mom's house, and we get there and we are bloody, and we smell like crap, and we are bleeding and swollen with wasp stings, but all of a sudden, I'm hanging out with my best friend again, and it's been an awesome day. Thanks.